Turn your head in Bristol and you're bound to see a name posted almost anywhere. Why do we see these names all around us? Who were they? What did they do? Why are they important? What's in a name? The Stacy Grayson Memorial at Steel Creek has been a key feature of Bristol ever since it opened in 1964. The people of Bristol use the park every day and enjoy its many activities, but who was the man who made this park a reality?
Well, he's the greatest man I ever knew, and I speak for my sisters as well, Beth and Debbie. He was kind and gentle and generous. He was strong. He was gritty. He was spontaneous, and he loved people, and he was a fighter. So he was kind of an oxymoron, sweet and gentle, but he'd fight in a heartbeat. And being a fighter is one reason we have the park, because he had to fight for everything he ever got, and the park was one thing he really wanted when he ran for mayor. And when he became mayor, and they were trying to appropriate funds for the park, nobody wanted to do it. So he said, we're going to build a park. And he got a bond issued to do it, and he had been working on a bulldozer, so he took that bulldozer down to the park and started the park. He also, before the bulldozer, he and Ken Messroll and Bill Hunt, who's the golf pro at the country club. Ken Messroll served on the Parks Commission at the time, I believe. And they took their golf clubs and a lawnmower and went down to the park, and they would drive the ball, and then they would mow out the golf course. And that's how they planned the golf course. They played that whole, all the little knolls and valleys, and laid out the golf course by physically playing it themselves. So Daddy was a mover and a shaker, and got things done.
Grayson wasn't originally from Bristol, but it's where he would grow up and eventually come to serve the city and its people.
He was born in Chowns, Tennessee, but they moved to Bristol when he was like 5, 6 years old. And he was too young to go to school at that time, and his mother went to the school and begged the principal to take him because she had to work and she didn't have anybody to take care of him. So they finally took him in and let him go to school when he was too young to go. But and then he went on to Tennessee High School, and he played football at Tennessee High School. He was a cheerleader at Tennessee High School after the football coach got mad at him, I think, or something, so he then became a cheerleader. He was also in the band at Tennessee High, and then he went to Virginia High, and he played football over there and graduated from Virginia High.
Growing up, Grayson was also very devoted to the Boy Scouts, an activity that would help shape his character and serve as a stepping stone towards his civic service career.
He was very involved with Boy Scouts when he was younger. He said that that's really probably what molded him to be who he was. Because he grew up with his mother and his brother and his sister on Windsor Avenue. His father was over in Mountain City, and Gingy, our grandmother, told me she had to whip him about every day. He just needed a good whipping about every day. And the Boy Scouts kind of kept him in line. He had a bugle, and understand that there was a little wall out in front of their house on Windsor Avenue, and he'd get out up on that wall and blow his bugle, and all his friends knew, let's come play. Stacy's out here and he's calling us to play. So he would do that, and then he'd stand out on that wall and give his little speeches. And he just loved people and loved being with people and doing things for people too.
From early on, Grayson had a knack for law and a genuine desire to help people. In 1939, Grayson began his career as a lawyer and would continue to practice law up through his term as mayor in 1965.
When he was at Cumberland University, one of the professors there said, Stacy, I don't know that I've ever known anybody that was a born lawyer, but if there was one, you are a born lawyer. You've got it. So that was kind of neat for him, because he was not the straight-A student that everyone would picture him being. Maybe he was not. But he was good with what he did, and he was very good with law and understood law very well. And I know one time he was in the courtroom I don't know who the judge was, and Daddy was fighting his case, and whatever he said, the judge said, "Stacy, if you say that again, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court." So Daddy said it again. He said, "Stacy, I told you I was going to hold you in contempt of court. That'll be a $20 fine." Daddy said, "Fine." And he slammed 2 20s on the counter, and he said, "There's 2 20s. One's for the contempt I have for you." So he was a fighter. He was a great attorney. I only got to see him really in the courtroom once, and it was during the Lloyd Myers trial. And for the people in Bristol that grew up here, everybody knows about that trial. It was big. And David Haynes, Frank Winston, and Daddy were the 3 attorneys for the Myers. And Daddy put on a big show in that courtroom. I remember that today. He was talking about Walter Ferris, who was claiming the Myers family had some of his coins in their keeping, and they were worth a fortune, and he wanted them. And so Daddy was explaining to the jury, because he was on the stand, and Daddy was looking at him, and he said to he looked at Mr. Ferris, and then he looked at the jury people. He said, "Have you ever heard the story about the little titmouse and the elephant? And how the little titmouse scared the elephant out of the room?" He said, "If you believe this story about Ferris over here," he said, "I can tell you right now," and he got up and went down to the floor, and he said, "It's a lie. It's a lie." So he was not only an attorney, he was an actor.
Despite his theatrical flair in the courtroom, Grayson was always determined to help those who needed it the most.
He was so good to women when they would come to him and they were getting a divorce and they didn't have any money and they were down and out, and he could relate to that, and because of his mom. And so sometimes he would come home with these little rings or trinkets that's what she had to pay with, and that was it, and he would take that, and that was her payment. He didn't believe in trying to gouge her. He was born to civic service and to make the world a better place. He wanted it to be fair as it could be for people, because Daddy told us, he called us boys because he wanted 3 boys, and he got 3 girls, so he said he struck out. But he'd say, "Boys, life ain't fair." And life ain't fair. But he tried to make it as fair as possible. He was good to the older people in the community. He'd go by and visit them because he knew they were lonely. He would go pick up children in our neighborhood. Daddy had this old, it was a 1906 International fire truck thing, and you had to crank it in the front to start it. He loved cars and trucks and motorcycles, and that was just one of the things he had. And every now and then in the summertime, he'd crank that thing up, and he would drive through the neighborhood, Windsor Avenue and Anderson Street and all around, and pick up all the children and take them downtown to Bassett's and get them the ice cream cone they wanted, and then we'd ride around and go back home. And that was a real treat. That was a lot of fun. So he was not only good to old people, he was good to young people. And it started very early in life. I know Doug Boy, who used to live here in Bristol and moved to Lynchburg, wrote a story about when Daddy was little. I don't know, maybe they were like 6, 7 years old, and they were playing where old Anderson School used to be, which is across from the Methodist church where Tennessee Ernie Ford started singing on Anderson. Well, they were over there playing, and this little black boy came up to play, and he said, "Can I play too?" And 2 of the boys, they were a little older, started laughing and calling him names and stuff like that. And Daddy said, "Listen, the boy's name is Lewis. You will call him Lewis. And if you don't call him Lewis, just try it." Thereafter, they called him Lewis. So Daddy was always ready for a fight, but he always wanted to fight for the guy that needed to be fought for. So he did that.
In 1961, Grayson was elected mayor of Bristol. He would serve out his term until 1965, all while carrying out his visions for making Bristol everything it could be.
He ran for mayor in 1961, and he was there until June of '65. So it was all my years in high school that he served as mayor, so I can remember a number of things. And a lot of things were accomplished during those 4 years. It's just unbelievable. Our library was so old and outdated, and a new library was conceived, and the old one was on the Tennessee side, but there was land on the Virginia side for the library, so the library was built on the Virginia side, and it's where it is today, actually. The City Hall was in very bad disrepair, so a new City Hall was built. There was no administration building to speak of for the school system, so the round building was built. Tennessee High School got a new addition that was much needed. There was new fire halls were built, baseball field over at Rotary Park. Industry, he brought industry into Bristol, and he foresaw seeing an industry that would have child care with it so that mothers could work and not worry about their children. I don't know that that ever came about. I know he brought in some new business, he and the two commissioners. And they wanted this town to grow, but he did not see it being a city like a big city. He wanted to be a city that was strong within itself, and wanted our community to be proud of our community. And in being proud of your community, you have to have buildings and organizations and committees that make it so. And by the time he went out as mayor, these things had happened. There were lots of things to be proud of. He wanted Bristol to be the best it could be because he loved Bristol. He loved the people in it, and he loved life. And he loved life fighting it or loving it. He loved it both ways.
Ultimately, the crowning achievement of Stacy Grayson's career is Still Creek Park itself. It was named after Grayson to honor everything he did to bring the park to Bristol, and now named to honor his memory.
I think he would be very pleased that so many people are using the park, and that there is a Friends of Still Creek Park group, and they have done wonderful things to preserve the park and keep it a wonderful place, and we've had good parks directors who have cared about it. I think it can always be more, but sometimes more is less. I know at one time it was considered to make a theme park down there. That would have been horrible. They're theme parks and they're good, but they're where they need to be. This needed to be an open space and a happy space for families to come and enjoy the nature that is there. I think every species that's known in the state of Tennessee and even beyond is out there on Slagle Hollow. And if you're a nature lover, fauna and flora, or bird watcher, whatever, there's a place for you right there. You can go and see so much. We're very fortunate to have the Friends of Still Creek Park committee. They're wonderful. They've done a great job. And I think our parks director now has a very big heart for the park as well, which is good. And it's the people that will keep it going. I think that that's the one thing he would be proudest of. I mean, buildings can deteriorate and fall apart, and commissions can come and go, but if you have a treasure like that park, it can be there forever.
Stacy Grayson passed away at age 60 after living a full life filled with everything he ever wanted to accomplish.
Daddy had no regrets. He died a pretty happy man, accomplished all the things he wanted to accomplish, got to do everything he wanted to do, and fulfilled, I think, his visions. And as he said, he got to live more in his 60 years than some people do in 100. So that says it, doesn't it?